The moment Lily stepped into the Silver Spoon restaurant for her evening shift, she could feel the weight of the day already pressing down on her shoulders. Outside, the autumn wind scattered golden leaves across the city streets, but inside, the warm lighting and soft music created a bubble of luxury for the well-heeled customers who frequented the establishment. "You're just in time," whispered Diane, the head waitress, as Lily tied her apron around her waist. "Table 12 has been asking for you specifically. Apparently you made quite an impression last week." Lily nodded and quickly checked her appearance in the mirrored wall. Dark circles shadowed her eyes from the late night studying, but her smile still came easily, genuine despite her exhaustion. At 26, she hadn't imagined this would be her life, working double shifts at an upscale restaurant while her music degree gathered dust in a drawer at her tiny apartment. "Table 12 is Mr. Reynolds again," Diane added with a meaningful look. "The tech billionaire. He's with business associates tonight." Lily's stomach tightened. Richard Reynolds was known for being particular about his service, leaving either extravagant tips or cutting remarks depending on his mood. She'd served him twice before without incident, but that provided little comfort as she made her way across the dining room, notepad in hand. "Good evening, Mr. Reynolds and guests. Welcome back to Silver Spoon," Lily said, her voice steady and warm. "May I start you off with something from our wine selection?" Reynolds looked up, recognition flickering in his eyes. He was younger than most of the restaurant's wealthy patrons, perhaps 40, with sharp features and observant gray eyes that seemed to notice everything. Unlike many of the restaurant's regulars who barely acknowledged the staff, he had a habit of making direct eye contact. "Ah, it's you," he said with unexpected warmth. "The one who recommended that excellent Bordeaux last month. Yes, we'll have something similar, but perhaps with more character. You choose." As Lily jotted down notes and discussed wine pairings, her fingers tapped an unconscious rhythm against her notepad, a habit from years of piano practice. She didn't notice Reynolds watching her hands until she finished speaking. "You play?" he asked suddenly, interrupting his colleague mid-sentence. Lily froze, caught off guard. "I'm sorry?" "Piano," he clarified, nodding toward her fingers. "Your hands move like a pianist's. That tapping isn't random. It was Debussy just now, wasn't it?" "Clair de lune?" Heat rose to Lily's cheeks. She hadn't realized her old habits were so obvious. "Yes, actually. Just an old habit. I'll get those drinks started for you." As she turned to leave, Reynolds said something unexpected that stopped her in her tracks. "Wait. I heard you humming Bach when you served my table last time. You have classical training, don't you?" The other guests at the table looked uncomfortable at this personal line of questioning, but Reynolds seemed genuinely curious. Lily hesitated, uncertain how to respond to a customer asking about her private life. "I studied piano performance in college," she admitted finally. "But that was a while ago." Reynolds nodded thoughtfully. "Yet you're working here instead. Interesting." The comment stung, though Lily knew he hadn't meant it cruelly. How could she explain that her grandmother's illness had drained her savings during her final year at the conservatory? That after the funeral, with mounting student debt and no family support. Her dreams of concert halls had been replaced by the practical need to keep a roof over her head. "Life takes unexpected turns sometimes," she said simply, maintaining her professional smile. "I'll be right back with your wine." Throughout the evening, Lily found Reynolds watching her with an appraising look whenever she approached the table. His colleagues were discussing some major business deal, but he seemed distracted, often drumming his own fingers on the white tablecloth. Near the end of their meal, as Lily cleared the dessert plates, Reynolds suddenly asked, "When was the last time you played?" "Seriously played, I mean." She paused, calculating. "Almost 3 years now." "That's a terrible waste," he said bluntly. One of his colleagues chuckled nervously. "Rich, we're in the middle of discussing the merger." But Reynolds waved him off. "Do you miss it?" he pressed, ignoring the awkward glances around the table. Lily felt something catch in her throat. Did she miss it? Every single day. She missed the way time disappeared when her fingers touched the keys, how music filled the empty spaces inside her. She missed her grandmother sitting beside her on the bench, guiding her hands through difficult passages. Most of all, she missed feeling like she was doing what she was born to do. "Yes," she answered quietly. "Very much." Reynolds nodded as if confirming something to himself, then pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "I'm hosting a charity gala at my home next Saturday evening. My pianist canceled this morning, family emergency. I'll pay you $3,000 to play for 2 hours. Lily nearly dropped the plates she was holding. Mr. Reynolds, I haven't performed in years. I'm not prepared for something like that. You have a week to prepare, he countered. Nothing too complex, some background classical pieces while people mingle. Perhaps one feature performance. I've written the address and time on the back. Think about it. He slipped the card across the table. Lily took it automatically, her mind racing. $3,000 was more than a month's rent and utilities combined. I don't understand, she said hesitantly. You've never heard me play? I could be terrible. Reynolds smiled for the first time that evening, a genuine expression that transformed his serious face. I've spent my life spotting untapped potential, Ms. Lily. It's how I built my company from nothing. The way you talk about music, the way your hands move, those aren't signs of someone who's terrible. They're signs of someone who speaks the language of music fluently. His business associates exchanged amused glances, clearly accustomed to Reynolds' impulsive decisions. Lily tucked the card into her pocket, promising to consider it, though she had already begun mentally cataloging which pieces she might still remember well enough to perform. After her shift ended at midnight, Lily walked to the bus stop, her fingers curled around the business card in her coat pocket. The night air was cold, but her mind was too busy to notice. $3,000 wouldn't change her life permanently, but it would give her breathing room, maybe even enough to repair her grandmother's old upright piano that sat untuned in her apartment. The bus was nearly empty when it arrived. Lily took a seat near the back, finally pulling out the card to examine it properly under the fluorescent lights. On the front was printed Richard Reynolds, founder and CEO Horizon Technologies, along with contact information. On the back, in surprisingly neat handwriting, September 28, 7 p.m., 1121 Lakeview Drive. Black tie optional. Please call to confirm. As the bus rumbled through the quiet streets, Lily closed her eyes and imagined her fingers moving across piano keys. Could she really do this? Perform in front of New York's elite after so long? The thought terrified her, yet beneath the fear was a flickering excitement she hadn't felt in years. When she reached her apartment building, she climbed the 5 flights of stairs slowly, her tired legs protesting. Inside her small studio, she glanced at the old piano in the corner, draped with a cloth cover and doubling as a shelf for books and mail. She hadn't touched it in months. What was the point when it was so badly out of tune? Without turning on the lights, Lily crossed the room and lifted the cover, running her fingers lightly over the dusty keys without pressing them. Her grandmother's voice seemed to whisper in the darkness. Music isn't just something you do, little flower. It's something you are. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate Zoe. How was work? Still coming to my brother's birthday tomorrow? Reality crashed back. Lily had forgotten about the birthday gathering. Her life was already full of commitments, work shifts, and the evening class she was taking to improve her job prospects. How could she possibly prepare for a performance in just 1 week? Yet as she got ready for bed, she found herself humming Debussy, her fingers moving across imaginary keys. For the first time in years, she felt a pull toward the life she'd once imagined for herself, a life filled with music. Before turning out the light, Lily propped Reynolds' card against her lamp and made a decision. Tomorrow she would find somewhere to practice. A real piano properly tuned, just to see if her fingers remembered what her heart had never forgotten. Morning light filtered through the thin curtains of Lily's apartment, waking her earlier than her alarm. For a moment she lay still, wondering why her heart was beating so quickly. Then she remembered. The business card on her nightstand, the unexpected offer, the possibility of sitting at a piano again. Not just any piano, but likely a grand piano worth more than everything she owned combined. She reached for her phone and called the restaurant. Hi, Diane. It's Lily. I know this is last minute, but is there any way someone could cover my Saturday shift next week? After arranging the schedule change, Lily sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her grandmother's piano in the corner of the studio apartment. The morning stretched before her. No work until the evening shift, no classes. With a sudden determination, she crossed the room and pulled off the cloth covering the upright piano. Dust motes danced in the sunbeam that fell across the yellowed keys. Lily pressed middle C, wincing at the sour, out-of-tune note that rang out. She couldn't practice on this. Not for a performance at a billionaire's mansion. An idea struck her. 20 minutes later, she was walking through the doors of Morrison's music shop, a place she'd avoided for years because it hurt too much to be surrounded by instruments she couldn't afford to play. The bell above the door jingled as she entered. The familiar smell of wood polish and new sheet music brought a rush of memories. An older man appeared from the back room, his face lighting up with recognition. Lily Chen. I haven't seen you in ages. Not since your final recital at the conservatory. Mr. Morrison had been her grandmother's friend, and had always saved special sheet music for them when they visited his shop. Hello. Mr. Morrison, Lily said, suddenly shy. I was wondering. Do you still let people test the pianos? His bushy eyebrows rose. For you, always. Are you back to playing again? Lily explained about Reynolds's offer as Mr. Morrison led her to a small practice room in the back of the shop. Inside was a modestly priced upright. Nothing like what she'd play at the gala, but properly tuned and with a warm, rich tone. Use it as long as you need, he said, patting her shoulder. It'll do these old ears good to hear you play again. Alone in the practice room, Lily sat on the bench and placed her hands on the keys without pressing them. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to remember. The last time she'd really played was at her grandmother's funeral, Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, her grandmother's favorite. She hadn't made it through the piece without breaking down. Taking a deep breath, she began with simple scales, wincing at how stiff her fingers felt. After warming up, she tried Debussy's Clair de Lune, the piece Reynolds had caught her tapping out on her notepad. She stumbled through the first few measures, her timing off, her muscle memory failing her. This is useless, she muttered, pulling her hands away from the keys. I can't possibly be ready in a week. But she thought of Reynolds' words. That's a terrible waste. And deeper still, her grandmother's voice. Music isn't just something you do, little flower. It's something you are. Lily straightened her back and started again. This time she didn't stop when she made mistakes. She played through the piece from beginning to end, then again and again. By the fourth attempt, something shifted. Her fingers began to remember what her mind had forgotten. Hours passed. Mr. Morrison brought her tea and sandwiches, which she barely touched. She moved from Debussy to Bach, then to Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, pieces that had once been as familiar to her as breathing. Some passages flowed easily. Others felt like climbing a mountain with weights strapped to her ankles. The shop was closing when Mr. Morrison gently knocked on the practice room door. Lily, it's past 7. She looked up, startled. Her back ached. Her fingers were sore, but something inside her felt more alive than it had in years. I'm so sorry. I lost track of time. No apology needed. You can come back tomorrow if you like. Lily nodded gratefully. I need to call Mr. Reynolds tonight. To accept his offer. On the bus ride home, Lily pulled out Reynolds' card and dialed the number with trembling fingers. She half expected to reach a secretary or assistant, but after 2 rings, Reynolds himself answered. This is Richard Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds. It's Lily Chen, from the Silver Spoon restaurant. There was a pause, then a note of pleased surprise in his voice. The pianist. Have you decided to accept my offer? Yes, but... She hesitated, then decided honesty was best. I'm very rusty. I'd need to know what you're expecting. 2 hours of classical background music while guests mingle and eat. Nothing too challenging. Chopin, Debussy, perhaps some light Mozart. And 1 feature piece when I introduce you. Something that showcases your ability. Can you manage that? Lily thought of how her fingers had slowly remembered their way around the keys today. A week of serious practice might be enough. Yes, I can do that. But I should tell you I don't have anything suitable to wear for a black tie event. Reynolds chuckled. That's easily solved. I'll have my assistant contact you tomorrow. She'll arrange for something appropriate and handle the other details. After they hung up, Lily sat on her small bed, excitement and anxiety churning inside her. What had she gotten herself into? The thought of playing in front of New York's elite made her stomach twist. Yet beneath the fear was a current of something else, purpose perhaps. Or hope. Her roommate Zoe came home around midnight, surprised to find Lily still awake. You look different, Zoe said, studying her face. Did something happen? Lily told her about Reynolds' offer. Zoe's eyes widened with each detail. $3,000 for 1 night? That's incredible. But wait, you haven't played in years. Are you sure you can do this? No, Lily admitted. I'm not sure at all, but I have to try. The next morning, Reynolds' assistant called. a brisk, efficient woman named Vivian who arranged for Lily to visit a boutique the following day to select an evening gown. "Mr. Reynolds has approved a reasonable budget for attire and any necessary accessories," Vivian explained. "He also mentioned you might need access to a piano for practice this week." "I've found a place to practice," Lily assured her, thinking of Mr. Morrison's shop. "Very well. I'll email you the program for the evening and a list of suggested pieces for the background music portion. For your feature performance, Mr. Reynolds suggests you choose something meaningful to you." Every day that week, Lily went to Morrison's music shop, practicing until her fingers cramped and her back ached. Mr. Morrison kept the practice room available for her, turning away other potential users with a wink and a murmured explanation that always made them nod understandingly. By Thursday, Lily could play through most of her old repertoire without major mistakes. It wasn't perfect, nowhere near the level she'd achieved at the conservatory, but it was passable. For her feature piece, she chose Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor, the piece she'd been working on when her grandmother fell ill. She hadn't finished learning it then, and parts of it remained beyond her current abilities, but something about its passionate storytelling quality felt right. On Friday, she visited the boutique Vivian had arranged. The saleswoman helped her select a simple but elegant black gown that made her look like a different person entirely. Looking at her reflection, Lily barely recognized herself. "You look like a concert pianist," the saleswoman said approvingly. That night, too nervous to sleep, Lily sat by her window watching the city lights. Tomorrow she would play again, really play for an audience on a proper piano. The thought both terrified and thrilled her. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Looking forward to tomorrow evening. My guests are in for a surprise." How strange, Lily thought, that a chance encounter with a billionaire had led to this moment. A week ago, her dreams of music had been buried under practical concerns: rent, bills, career advancement in the hospitality industry. Now those dreams were awakening, stretching like limbs that had fallen asleep. She couldn't know what tomorrow would bring. Perhaps she would fail spectacularly. Perhaps her rusty skills would embarrass both her and Reynolds. But for the first time in 3 years, Lily felt the flutter of possibility in her chest. The sense that perhaps her grandmother had been right all along. Perhaps music wasn't just something she did, it was something she was. Saturday evening arrived with a sky painted in dramatic purples and oranges. Lily stood at her apartment window watching the sunset while Zoe helped zip up her borrowed evening gown. "I still can't believe this is happening," Zoe said, adjusting the simple pearl necklace they'd found at a vintage shop the day before. "My roommate playing piano for the Richard Reynolds." Lily's stomach churned with nerves. "I'm going to embarrass myself in front of the richest people in New York." "No, you're not." Zoe turned her around, gripping her shoulders firmly. "I heard you practicing on that old upright yesterday. Even with it being out of tune, you sounded amazing. Just imagine what you'll sound like on a proper piano." A car horn honked outside. The driver Reynolds had sent was 5 minutes early. "Text me everything," Zoe called as Lily hurried down the apartment stairs, clutching a small evening bag containing only her phone, lip balm, and the sheet music for her feature piece. The drive to Reynolds' estate took nearly an hour, leaving the crowded city behind for the wooded hills north of Manhattan. Lily watched through the window as the car passed through massive iron gates and wound up a long driveway lined with elegant lanterns. When the house came into view, she caught her breath. House was the wrong word. It was a modern mansion of glass and stone lit up against the darkening sky like something from a dream. The driver pulled up to the front entrance. "The staff entrance is around back, miss," he said, misunderstanding her role for the evening. "Actually," Lily said, finding her voice, "I'm the pianist." The driver's eyebrows shot up. "My apologies, miss. Please go right in through the main door." Lily stepped out of the car, smoothing her black gown nervously. The massive front door opened before she could knock, revealing Vivian, Reynolds' assistant, tablet in hand. "You're right on time," Vivian said, eyes quickly assessing Lily's appearance. "The gown suits you. Follow me, please. The guests will begin arriving in 20 minutes. I'll show you to the piano so you can get comfortable before you start playing." Lily followed Vivian through an entrance hall with soaring ceilings and modern art on the walls. Staff members hurried about with trays and flowers, putting final touches on the evening's preparations. They passed through a room where bartenders were setting up, then into a massive space that took Lily's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the illuminated gardens and, in the distance, the twinkling lights of the city. In the center of the room stood a gleaming black grand piano on a slightly raised platform, a Steinway concert grand that probably cost more than Lily would earn in 10 years. "This is where you'll play," Vivian said, gesturing to the piano. "Background music during the cocktail hour and dinner, then your feature piece before dessert when Mr. Reynolds makes his address about the charity." Lily nodded, her eyes fixed on the piano. It was the most beautiful instrument she'd ever seen. "Feel free to warm up," Vivian said, checking something on her tablet. "The technician tuned it this morning. Mr. Reynolds will greet you before the guests arrive." Left alone with the piano, Lily approached it slowly, almost reverently. She ran her fingers lightly over the polished surface before sitting on the bench. The keys felt cool and perfect under her fingertips. She played a simple scale, closing her eyes at the rich, resonant sound. For the next 15 minutes, she lost herself in warm-up exercises, her anxiety gradually melting away as she bonded with the instrument. This piano responded to the lightest touch, allowing for subtleties she could never achieve on the practice upright. "It suits you." Lily's eyes flew open. Richard Reynolds stood a few feet away, watching her with an expression of quiet satisfaction. He wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his usual intensity softened by a genuine smile. "The piano?" she asked. "The music," he corrected. "You look at home when you play. Like you've found where you belong." Lily felt her cheeks warm. "Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Reynolds, and for the dress and the car and—" He waved away her thanks. "I have a good ear for talent, Ms. Chen. I'm simply providing a stage. The rest is all you." He glanced at his watch. "The guests will arrive momentarily. Just play whatever feels right for the next hour. Classical pieces, nothing too dramatic yet. Save that for your feature." As Reynolds walked away to greet his first guests, Lily took a deep breath and began to play Debussy's Arabesque No. 1. It's flowing, delicate notes filling the space as waiters with trays of champagne took their positions. The room gradually filled with guests in formal attire, women in designer gowns and men in tuxedos. Lily kept her focus on the music, moving from Debussy to Mozart to Chopin, pieces flowing one into another. Most guests paid little attention to her, treating the music as pleasant background to their conversations about business deals, charity projects, and summer homes. Occasionally, someone would pause near the piano, listening more intently before moving on with a nod of appreciation. Lily felt invisible yet exposed, like a painting on the wall that most walked past without seeing, while others stopped to study every brushstroke. During dinner, served in an adjacent dining room, Lily played softer pieces, Sadie and quiet Beethoven. Her fingers moved automatically while her mind drifted to the feature piece she would play later. Chopin's Ballade No. 1 was ambitious, perhaps too ambitious after her long absence from serious playing. There were passages she still stumbled over despite her week of intensive practice. As the dinner plates were being cleared, Vivian appeared at Lily's side. 10 minutes until Mr. Reynolds introduces you. Would you like some water?" Lily nodded gratefully, suddenly aware of how dry her mouth had become. She sipped the water Vivian brought, watching as the guests returned to the main room for Reynolds's address about the charity, something about educational opportunities for underprivileged children. Reynolds stepped onto the small platform beside the piano, tapping a spoon against his crystal glass to get everyone's attention. The room gradually quieted. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began. "Your generosity will help hundreds of children access the arts education they deserve." He spoke briefly about the charity's work before turning slightly toward Lily. "Before we continue our evening, I'd like to introduce someone special. Many of you have been enjoying the beautiful music that has accompanied our gathering. The talented pianist is Lily Chen." A polite smattering of applause filled the room as curious faces turned toward the piano. "What you don't know," Reynolds continued, "is that until 1 week ago, Ms. Chen hadn't touched a piano in 3 years. I discovered her working as a waitress at Silver Spoon Restaurant, where her extraordinary talent was going completely unnoticed." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Lily felt heat rise to her face as hundreds of eyes focused on her. Ms. Chen studied at the prestigious Eastman School of Music, but had to abandon her training due to personal circumstances. Tonight she will play Chopin's Ballad No. 1 in G minor, a piece that I'm told holds special significance for her." Reynolds stepped back, joining the applause that followed his introduction. Lily's heart hammered in her chest as she adjusted the piano bench. She hadn't expected such a personal introduction, hadn't expected to be made the center of attention rather than remaining comfortably in the background. As the applause faded, an expectant hush fell over the room. Lily placed her hands on the keys, acutely aware of every eye upon her. For a moment, panic threatened to overwhelm her. What if she failed? What if her fingers froze or she forgot the piece halfway through? Then, unbidden, her grandmother's voice seemed to whisper in her ear. "When you play from your heart, little flower, the notes take care of themselves." Lily closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to play. The opening notes of the ballade rang out, gentle and questioning at first. She kept her touch light, letting the melody breathe as it gradually built in complexity. When she reached the first challenging passage, one she'd struggled with all week, her fingers found their way without hesitation, as if they remembered what her conscious mind did not. As the piece progressed, Lily forgot about the audience, forgot about Reynolds, forgot about everything except the conversation between her hands and the piano. The ballade told a story, beginning contemplatively, growing more passionate and complex, building to moments of heartbreaking beauty and dramatic intensity. When she reached the final, thunderous section, her fingers flew across the keys with a confidence she hadn't felt in years. The music poured out of her, raw and powerful, filling the massive room and silencing every whispered conversation. The final chords resonated through the space, lingering in the air like a question left unanswered. For several seconds after she finished, the room remained absolutely silent. The silence lasted only moments before the room erupted in applause. Lily opened her eyes, startled by the thunderous response. People were standing, their faces showing genuine amazement rather than mere politeness. She rose shakily from the piano bench and offered a small bow, overwhelmed by the reaction. Richard Reynolds was beaming, clapping with more enthusiasm than anyone. He stepped forward to stand beside her at the piano, raising his hands to quiet the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, what did I tell you? Extraordinary talent hiding in plain sight." He turned to Lily. "That was remarkable, Ms. Chen. Far beyond what I expected, even knowing your background." Lily's cheeks burned with a mixture of embarrassment and pride. "Thank you," she whispered, still trying to process what had just happened. For those minutes at the piano, she had forgotten everything. Her struggles, her abandoned dreams, the years of telling herself that music was behind her. She had simply played, connecting with something deep inside herself that had been dormant but never truly gone. As the applause finally died down, a tall, distinguished man with silver hair approached the piano. He moved with the confident grace of someone accustomed to commanding attention. "Miss Chen," he said, extending his hand. "Thomas Wilson, director of the New York Philharmonic." That was a moving performance. Lily's breath caught in her throat as she shook his hand. "Thank you, sir. Where did you study? Your technique shows formal training, but there's something uniquely expressive in your interpretation." "Eastman School of Music," she replied, her voice barely audible. "But I didn't finish my final year." Wilson nodded thoughtfully. "A shame. Your talent is undeniable." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "We should talk. The Philharmonic has a young artists program you might find interesting." Lily took the card with trembling fingers, reading the embossed lettering in disbelief. Was this really happening? Before she could respond, another guest approached, then another. Soon, Lily found herself surrounded by people asking questions, offering compliments, and in some cases handing her their cards. A woman who ran a prestigious music school in Manhattan, a composer looking for a pianist to record his latest work, a wealthy couple who hosted private music salons in their Upper East Side apartment. Through it all, Reynolds watched from a few steps away, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. When the crowd around Lily finally thinned as guests moved on to dessert, he approached again. "You've made quite an impression," he said, gesturing to the collection of business cards Lily now clutched in her hand. "I can't believe this is happening," she admitted. "Just a week ago I was taking your dinner order," Reynolds laughed. "And now Thomas Wilson is offering you opportunities with the Philharmonic. Life can change quickly, Ms. Chen." A waiter appeared with a glass of champagne for Lily. She took a small sip, the bubbles matching the effervescent feeling in her chest. "Mr. Reynolds," she began, trying to find the right words, "I don't know how to thank you. Not just for tonight, but for seeing something in me that I'd stopped seeing in myself." "What I saw was wasted potential," he replied frankly, "and I've built a career on recognizing potential. But what happened tonight, that was all you?" He paused, considering his next words carefully. "I have a proposition for you, if you're interested." Lily tilted her head questioningly. "I sit on the board of the Manhattan Academy of Music. They have a special program for exceptional students who had to interrupt their education. Full scholarship, flexible schedule to accommodate working students. I'd like to recommend you." The champagne glass nearly slipped from Lily's fingers. "You would do that?" "As I said, I have a good ear for talent, and I believe in investing in it." Reynolds' eyes were serious now. "You don't belong waiting tables, Ms. Chen. You belong at a piano." Tears pricked at Lily's eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll consider it. Think about Wilson's offer, too. You have options now. That's what tonight was really about." Before Lily could respond, Vivian appeared at Reynolds' elbow, whispering something urgent about one of the major donors needing his attention. He excused himself with a promise to speak with Lily again before the evening ended. Left momentarily alone, Lily returned to the piano bench, running her fingers lightly over the keys without pressing them. The evening had taken on a dreamlike quality. Was this real? Would all these opportunities evaporate in the harsh light of tomorrow? A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "Excuse me." Lily looked up to see an older woman in a deep blue gown standing beside the piano. Something about her seemed familiar, though Lily was certain they had never met. "Your playing was beautiful," the woman said, "especially the Chopin. It reminded me of my late husband's interpretation. He was a concert pianist many years ago." "Thank you," Lily replied, touched by the personal connection. "I'm Catherine Reynolds," the woman continued. "Richard's mother." Lily straightened immediately. "Oh, it's lovely to meet you, Mrs. Reynolds." Catherine smiled warmly. "My son has an eye for talent, but he rarely gets personally involved like this. You must have impressed him greatly." "I'm still not entirely sure why," Lily admitted. "There are plenty of talented pianists in New York, perhaps, but there's something genuine in how you play. Music isn't just notes to you, it's a language." Catherine's eyes held a knowing look. "Tell me, who taught you to play?" "My grandmother," Lily said softly. "She was my first teacher before I started formal training. She always said technique could be learned, but feeling had to come from the heart." Catherine nodded. "Your grandmother was a wise woman. I'd like to tell you a story if you don't mind." Lily nodded, intrigued. "Richard wasn't always the confident businessman you see today. As a boy, he struggled terribly with reading, what they now call dyslexia. Words on a page made no sense to him. His father wanted him to be a lawyer like himself and grew frustrated with Richard's difficulties." Catherine paused, her eyes distant with memory. But Richard had an extraordinary ear for music. He could hear a piece once and play it back almost perfectly. I found him a piano teacher who used music to help him with patterns and sequencing. The skills eventually transferred to his reading and, more importantly, gave him confidence when he desperately needed it. Lily began to understand. "So when he saw me at the restaurant, he recognized someone whose life had been touched by music the way his had been," Catherine finished. "Though he rarely plays anymore, he's never forgotten what music did for him." The conversation with Catherine gave Lily a new perspective on Reynolds's interest in her talent. It wasn't just about recognizing a good investment or showing off his discovery at a party. There was something more personal behind his actions. As the evening wound down, guests began to depart. Lily played soft, reflective pieces as people said their goodbyes, collected their coats, and exchanged final business cards. She felt exhausted but exhilarated, like a runner who had completed a marathon they hadn't trained for, but somehow found the strength to finish. When the last guest had departed, Reynolds found Lily still at the piano, playing quietly for herself. "That went even better than I'd hoped," he said, sitting beside her on the bench. "What do you think about the scholarship opportunity?" Lily's fingers stilled on the keys. "It sounds incredible, but I've been living day to day for so long," she admitted. "The idea of returning to music seriously, it's both wonderful and terrifying. What if I fail again?" Reynolds considered this. "When I started my first company, everyone told me it would fail. My father, my professors, even my best friend. And they were right, it did fail spectacularly. He smiled at the memory. But my second company succeeded beyond my wildest expectations. Do you know why? Lily shook her head. Because failing taught me exactly what not to do the second time around. He turned to face her fully. You didn't fail music, Ms. Chen. Life threw you a curveball. But now you have a second chance with more wisdom and perspective than before. His words resonated deeply. Lily thought about the last 3 years. The struggle, the loneliness, the feeling that she had lost her one true connection to joy. Yet tonight, that connection had sparked back to life more powerfully than she could have imagined. I'll consider the scholarship, she said finally, and Mr. Wilson's offer as well. Reynolds nodded, satisfied. My driver will take you home whenever you're ready. And Lily, he rarely used her first name. Whatever you decide, remember what you proved tonight to yourself most of all. What's that? She asked. That talent doesn't disappear just because we stop using it. It waits patiently for us to find our way back. As Lily gathered her things to leave, she took one last look at the magnificent piano, where her life had changed course in a single evening. The cards from music directors, composers, and patrons felt heavy in her purse, not with weight, but with possibility. Outside, the night sky was clear, stars visible despite the city's distant glow. The driver held the car door open for her. Before stepping in, Lily paused to look back at Reynolds' home, knowing that when she left, she would be taking with her something far more valuable than the generous payment she had earned. She was leaving with her music, not as a memory this time, but as a future. 2 years later, Lily stood in the wings of Carnegie Hall, heart racing as she listened to the announcement of her name. The journey from that night at Reynolds' charity gala to this moment had been filled with hard work, doubt, triumphs, and transformations, and now, making her Carnegie Hall debut, please welcome pianist Lily Chen. Taking a deep breath, Lily walked onto the stage with measured steps, the applause washing over her like a wave. The spotlight followed her to the gleaming concert grand. She adjusted the bench, centered herself, and looked out at the packed auditorium. Somewhere in the audience sat Richard Reynolds, the man whose unexpected intervention had changed everything. As her fingers touched the keys and the first notes of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 filled the hall, Lily allowed her mind to drift back to the path that had led her here. The morning after the charity gala, Lily had woken in her tiny apartment wondering if it had all been a dream. The stack of business cards on her nightstand proved otherwise. She had called in sick to the restaurant, needing time to think about the crossroads before her. By noon, her phone had rung. It was Thomas Wilson from the New York Philharmonic. Not waiting for her to contact him first. Miss Chen, I'd like to arrange an audition for you next week, if you're available. Then another call, Catherine Reynolds inviting her to lunch. And another, a music producer who had been at the gala and wanted to discuss a recording opportunity. Overwhelmed, Lily had sat on the floor of her apartment, back against her grandmother's old piano, and cried, not from sadness but from the sudden opening of doors she had believed forever closed. Zoe had found her there, still in pajamas, surrounded by scribbled notes from all the calls. What's happening? Zoe had asked, concerned by her roommate's tears. Everything, Lily had answered. Everything is happening at once. Within a month, Lily had accepted the scholarship Reynolds offered at the Manhattan Academy of Music. She continued working at the restaurant part-time, but with a flexible schedule that accommodated her classes and practice. The transition hadn't been easy. Returning to formal music education after years away had exposed gaps in her technique that required grueling hours of practice to overcome. Some days her fingers refused to cooperate and frustration threatened to derail her resolve. On those days, she would remember Reynolds' words. Talent doesn't disappear just because we stop using it. It waits patiently for us to find our way back. 6 months into her studies, Wilson had offered her a position with the Philharmonic's Emerging Artists Program, a part-time role that provided mentorship from established musicians and occasional performance opportunities. Lily had accepted, stretching herself thin between schoolwork and the program. Her first public performance with the program had been terrifying. Playing for music professionals was entirely different from playing background music at a party, or even a featured piece at a charity event. These people could hear every slight hesitation, every minor technical flaw. But they could also hear what her grandmother had always praised, her ability to infuse music with genuine emotion. After that performance, her instructor at the academy had taken her aside. "You have something rare, Lily. Technical precision can be taught. Emotional connection cannot." Gradually, Lily's schedule had shifted. More performances, fewer restaurant shifts. Small venues became larger ones. Local audiences became regional ones. Her name began appearing in music reviews, often with words like promising and authentic attached to it. Reynolds had kept tabs on her progress, occasionally attending her performances. Once he had brought his mother, and the three of them had dinner afterward. Catherine had reached across the table to squeeze Lily's hand. "You remind me of why music matters," she had said. "It's not about perfection. It's about connection." When Lily finally left the restaurant job for good, her co-workers had thrown her a party. Diane, the head waitress, had hugged her tightly. "Always knew you were meant for something special, honey." A year and a half after the gala, Lily had been invited to audition for a prestigious international piano competition. The preparation had been the most intense period of her life. 14-hour practice days, moments of self-doubt, and occasional panic attacks that left her gasping for breath at 2 a.m. The night before leaving for the competition, she had visited her grandmother's grave, placing fresh flowers beside the headstone. "I wish you could see this, Grandma," she had whispered. "I'm playing again. Really playing." The competition had been brutal. Round after round of eliminations, each performer more technically brilliant than the last. Lily had made it to the finals, surprising many, including herself. Though she hadn't won first place, her third-place finish had caught the attention of several concert promoters and led directly to the Carnegie Hall opportunity. Now, as her fingers danced across the keys in perfect synchrony with the orchestra behind her, Lily realized how far she had come, not just in skill, though her technique had improved dramatically, but in confidence and purpose. The music flowed through her without obstruction, each note carrying meaning and emotion. When the concerto ended, the audience rose to their feet. Lily stood and bowed, accepting their applause with gratitude. As she looked out at the crowd, she spotted Reynolds in the front row, applauding with genuine pride. At the reception afterward, well-wishers surrounded her, offering congratulations and praise. Reynolds waited until the crowd thinned before approaching. "You've worked incredibly hard," he said, in lieu of conventional congratulations. Lily smiled. "The hardest I've ever worked at anything. It shows." Reynolds glanced around the elegant reception room. Quite a change from serving drinks at Silver Spoon. "I still have dreams about dropping trays of champagne glasses," Lily admitted with a laugh. "But yes, it's quite a change." They were interrupted by a young girl, perhaps 10 years old, clutching a program. "Ms. Chen, could I please have your autograph? I just started piano lessons and my teacher brought me to hear you play tonight." Touched, Lily knelt to the girl's level and signed the program. "What's your favorite piece to play?" "For Elise," the girl answered shyly. "But I mess up a lot." "I messed up for Elise many times when I was learning it," Lily told her. "The secret is to keep playing even when you make mistakes." After the girl left, Reynolds gave Lily an approving look. "Good advice." "I had a good teacher," Lily replied. "Several, actually, including you in a way." Reynolds shook his head. "I just opened a door. You walk through it, then kick down about a dozen more doors on your own." Later that evening, alone in her apartment, a new one, small, but with high ceilings and room for a baby grand piano, Lily opened her laptop to find her inbox flooded with emails. Concert offers, interview requests, an invitation to teach a master class at Juilliard. Amid the professional emails was one from Zoe, who had moved to California the previous year. "Watched the live stream of your concert tonight. Cried through half of it. Remember when you were afraid to accept that gala gig? Look at you now conquering Carnegie Hall, so proud of you. P.S. You're all over social media, check it out." Curious, Lily clicked the link Zoe had sent. A music blog had posted a video of her performance with the headline, From Waitress to Carnegie Hall, the remarkable journey of pianist Lily Chen. The comment section was filled with responses. Her playing made me cry. So much emotion. Where has she been hiding all this time? That Rachmaninoff was incredible. Technical skill, but with soul. Scrolling further, Lily paused at one comment. That stood out. My daughter watched this and asked for piano lessons immediately. Thank you for inspiring the next generation. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. Her grandmother had always told her that music was meant to be shared, that its greatest power lay in its ability to move people, to inspire them, to create connections across all boundaries. The next morning, Lily woke early and went to the piano, not to practice her upcoming program or work on technique, but simply to play for the joy of it, the way she had as a child, sitting beside her grandmother on the old upright bench. She played a simple melody her grandmother had taught her, one of the first pieces she had ever learned. As the familiar notes filled her apartment, Lily felt a circle completing. From the little girl discovering music, to the struggling waitress who had set it aside, to the concert pianist reclaiming her gift and sharing it with the world. Later, that day, she would receive an email from Richard Reynolds with an unexpected proposal, funding for a music program for underprivileged children, with Lily as its artistic director. Time to open doors for others, he would write. But for now, in the quiet morning light, Lily simply played. For herself. For her grandmother. For the joy of creating something beautiful in a world that so desperately needed beauty. And as the final notes of the simple melody hung in the air, she whispered, "Thank you." Not to any specific person, but to music itself, the faithful companion that had waited patiently for her return, then carried her home.